Okay, welcome to your break assignment. I'm going to start by talking about what I'd like you guys to do, your overarching goal during the week. The lectures, I started recording a first lecture and I just stopped. It's too long, it's too much. I typed too much information into the slides to sit there and read them to you. So I really want you guys to take this as a week of college. If I were a lecturer that got up in college and just went through all these slides and read them to you, what would you do at home to help make meaning off of them? So hopefully you guys are working in groups. I really don't want you doing this by yourself, but you really are going to be responsible for learning this material, and then you'll have to turn in your work when you come back. All right, so what you need to know, there's 44 vocab terms associated with social psych, not a lot. They're already on Quizlet, so make sure you know them. You need to know all the experiments, that the social psych experiments, what the results were and what the implications were, so things that we've done since then. And then you really need to know all these very basic social phenomenons and be able to apply them to everyday life, to very simple things like, why does Johnny not like Blake? Why will Susie and Sally be friends? All right, like, why will these two people in love? Why will these two people not fall in love? Why do we buy things, right? So advertisements, like, what are the things behind it? All right, so really be able to come up with examples from it. So we're going to start out, social psych is 3 parts. It's thinking, so how we think about other people, the influences that we get from our environment, and our attractions or our relations with other people. So we're going to start out with social thinking. Again, I'm not going to read through all these slides. I really want you guys to just actually do, I'm going to tell you to do things. Go do them. Okay, so social thinking. In your books, page 327, 323 to 730. Oh my gosh, I cannot read numbers. 723 to 730. Blech, it's break. I want you to read through these as a group and annotate them. So look for things that are in the book that are not in your notes and add them to your notes, right? So that'll be your marginalizations. Your definition. Oh, and I apologize. Some of the slides are out of order. I moved them around a little bit. But social psychology, I just told you those things, it's a study of looking about how we think, so our thinking, our influences from around us, and our relationships with other people. And the first thing we're going to look at, if I'm trying to look at how do our attitudes affect people, our opinions of other people, and how did that affect our behaviors. So the attribution theory, I'm going to put up the slide, it's attached. But this is when we tend to attribute people's actions because of their personalities instead of their environment, what just happened to them, or their situation. So and so is lazy. That's why they got to the job late, all right? Or so-and-so doesn't care, and that's why they came to the job late. So-and-so might have had a broken down car, or there was traffic, or there's other things going on that has nothing to do with him being lazy, but we tend to attribute his behavior to his, to what we think about that person. Okay, so that's the fundamental attribution theory. I'm going to put this slide up in just a second. But we really do this based on 3 things. How consistent they are with things that came before, are what we attribute, and then the consequences are the things that follow. So this is Kelly's attribution theory, but how we form opinions of each other. All right, so attribution then, if a person is late to the job, again, they don't care. Not that they don't have, or that they have a flat tire. So it's putting it on there. Your slide over here, down here, what I want you guys to do with this one, this is on the one of the starred ones that printed out. What I'd like you guys to do, your assignment for this part of the notes, is to read through all these biases. So the fundamental one we just talked about, the actor, observing, blaming the victim, self-serving, and then come up with an example. Okay, so what I want you guys to do to the side here, one of your assignments, is to come up with an example of all these common attributional biases. You will need to know them all. They're all vocab words. Okay, so this is how we form people's around us, or opinions of people around us. So how then can we ask the question, if our attitude towards people affects or is our interpretation of their actions, and their actions affect our attitudes, which one comes first? How do we get to change people's behaviors based on their attitudes? And what we have found is that our behavior is affected by 2 things. our internal attitudes, and then our external influences. All right, so our behavior is our internal attitudes and our external influences. So now we're going to go into a little bit of how can we change people's minds? How can we change their behaviors? And this is really, we've already talked about some of this before, is a lot of the advertising schemes. All right, so if you skip down to this slide here, all right, here, the foot in the door phenomenon. I added some stuff here, so you need to write this down to the side. So I'm trying to affect the way that people think and thus their behaviors. So let's talk about like trying to get them to give you money, or for your parents to raise your curfew, things like that. So there's a couple different techniques that we can use to change people's thinkings and thus change their behaviors. Here's something you need to add. It was not in the original slides that I had printed out. So how can we affect people's attitudes? There's two different ways. One of them is called the central route to persuasion. The other one's the peripheral route. Think about that if people are naturally engaged in whatever you're trying, in the behavior that you're trying to get from them. So if I'm trying to get people to recycle, if I'm trying to save the world, like save the earth, I mean like green, go green, right? Thomas Control, okay? The central route would be someone's already interested in that. They already want to be a better person and to recycle and to go green and all those things. So you would use the central route of persuasion, which is really just like logical thinking. If someone is not naturally inclined or not naturally involved, you can go something called the peripheral route, so that's around the outside. And a lot of the times what we do with the peripheral route is there's some type of endorsement by either someone who's famous or someone who is high esteemed, right? Like so a professor or someone who is really knowledgeable in the area. All right, so those are going to be our two routes of persuasion. We have the central route, they're already engaged, or the peripheral route, which means it needs to be endorsed. All right, so here's some other ways that we can try and get people's actions to change. Foot in the door phenomenon. This is where people, if they agree to something little in the beginning, they'll be more likely to agree to something big in the end. Something I added that was not in your notes is the door in the face. So the opposite of that is, instead of asking for something little in hopes of getting something big, is the opposite, is asking for something big in hopes of getting something little. All right, so foot in the door is like, why don't you test drive this car just for 20 minutes, right? Knowing that if they test drive and they agree to test drive it, they'll be more likely to buy the car later. The door in the face is asking for $100 when really all you want is $25. Okay, so those are some different social thinking or ways to change behaviors. Some other ways down here, so reciprocity. So opposite of foot in the door is when a salesperson gives something for the customer with an idea that they feel compelled to give back. So this is like reciprocity. So they give you something little and then they feel the need to repay. So here's a free gift. If you would like to subscribe to something else, right? So that's reciprocity. Even if the person didn't want it in the first place, they're more likely to feel obliged to return behaviors, to return favors. Okay, so I want you guys, your assignment for those three things is to come up with another example of foot in the door, door in the face, reciprocity. What are some other central route of persuasion, and then peripheral route of persuasion? Okay, last thing we're going to talk about in social thinking is roles. I know, again, this is skipping around a little bit, and that's why you hopefully you're listening and just not going off of the list. So roles we already talked about in our gender role. So it's a set of expectations. So you can think of like an actor, their role. What is their role? And it defines how we expect them to behave. So the role of a student, the role of a teacher, the role of a male, the role of a female. So there's some interesting experiments done with roles. And one of the most famous experiments is, here's my role, moved it right here, is the prison guard experiment by Zimbardo. And what Zimbardo did, is also known as the Stanford prison experiment, is he asked a group of people who are all the same roles to begin with. They were all students. Half of them were to play the role of a prison guard, and half of them were play the role of a prisoner, and really look at what happened after they were asked to play those roles. And what he found is that they often take them to the extreme. What I would like you to do for this part of the lecture is to go to YouTube and to actually look for the Zimbardo experiment, the Stanford basement experiment, watch it, and then have a conversation about it. Okay, so I gave you a list of things to do there throughout your lecture. I'm going to type up a slide here really quick that goes back over that, but that would be the end of social thinking. Your next notes will be on social influence, and I will do the same thing for those notes. Okay, so here are your assignment for social thinking to review. So you need to come up with additional examples of all the attributional area biases. I don't know why it doesn't like that, attribution biases. For persuasion or advertisements, you need to come up with more examples of the central route versus the peripheral, foot in the door, door in the face, and reciprocity. And then what I want you to do is on YouTube, look for the Stanford prison experiment. There's a video that's for about 13 minutes long. There's the person, it's a Imagination TV is who it's by. I want you to watch that and then compare it to the Stanford prison experiment. Okay, that is your first assignment. I will see you later.